Councillor Ducharme. All in favor? That motion's carried. Item 6, is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest in general nature? Seeing none, we'll move on to item 7. We don't have any public meetings pursuant to the Planning Act, Municipal Act, and other statutes. So item 8, review and adoption of the council minutes. I do have a resolution in front of me. Be it resolved that City Council approves the following minutes as printed. A, the regular council meeting held on September the 19th, 2023. And B, the Committee of the Whole meeting held on October the 3rd, 2023. Can I get a mover, please? Thanks, Councillor Graydon. Thanks, Councillor Peltier-Living. Discussion? All in favor? That motion is carried. This takes us to item 9, presentations and delegations. So 9A, and I believe attending virtually, Lindsay Hodgkinson, Vice President Operations with Galaxy Broadband Communications, and Adam Lamont, the Vice President with Telecom at Crown Capital Partners, Inc. And is going to share a presentation on high-speed internet access and fiber optic internet. So we'll take that away. I guess it's Adam that's probably going to speak. Adam, it's all yours.
Hello. Hi, thank you very much. I appreciate that. As mentioned, unfortunately, Lindsay was not able to join us today, but as mentioned, I'm Adam Lamont, VP Telecom with Community Network Partners, or sorry, Crown Telecom, which is the parent organization of Community Network Partners. Next slide, please. So, Crown Capital established its Crown Telecom Group with the sole focus of serving the rural and remote areas of Canada. And that could be, areas outside of the GTA, that could be rural areas of Northern Ontario, that could be as far north as, the Northwest Territories, Nunavut, that sort of thing. And so in establishing the group with that focus, we've accumulated a series of businesses that are very much oriented towards that end. We have WireIE, which again focuses on network extensions for the telecom, the large incumbent carriers, Bell, TELUS, that sort of thing. We have Galaxy Broadband that has largely been focused on the commercial enterprise connectivity in these rural and remote regions, as well as we now have Galaxy Fiber, which focuses on connectivity on some of these more residential grade networks. And then we have our NTFS group that largely focuses on the hands and feet and servicing, enabling those other networks. Now, the piece that we're talking about today, of course, is Community Network Partners, which is the first item on the chart. And Community Network Partners focus is really in building infrastructure. And so, and of course, we all know the first step in enabling that connectivity is getting the connectivity to the end users. And there's been a lot of efforts afoot over the last number of years to really make that happen. But we have very much taken the approach that the connectivity that we need to provide needs to be robust. And I say that being that we don't try and cover large areas with, say, a fixed wireless or satellite solution. We very much look at providing terrestrial carrier-grade solutions in these communities. And so that could be fiber all the way from end user back. That could also be satellite into a connection spot, and then satellite into fiber into the individual homes. And so that really is the focus of this group, and leveraging the various competencies that we have across the various business units. Next slide, please. So why do we do it? As I'm sure is no secret to you guys, the connectivity divide, the digital divide, as it's commonly referred to, is large, it's real, and it's impactful. In the dense urban centers of downtown Toronto, downtown Calgary, where I'm from, connectivity is not an issue, but not that far outside of it, and it becomes a real impact. And of course, we saw that most acutely during COVID, the ability for people to work from home, to be able to educate their kids from home, take part in telemedicine, all these sorts of opportunities that connectivity provides were not as available to folks outside of the urban centers. And so this is very much what is the driving factor behind the Crown Telecom Group. Next slide, please. And so these are a few of the areas that we've done projects in. So we've built a network in partnership with the town of Dubreuilville. We are an ACIP recipient for Ontario Connects, which is the Ontario NorthNet, which is what we'll be talking about today. We've also done builds with Ontario Libraries, Brooks in Alberta, and a variety of other entities and communities across Canada. Next slide, please. So why are we having this conversation today? As mentioned, we are an ACIP, Accelerated High-Speed Internet Program recipient, across some of the most difficult terrain in Northern Ontario. And one of those areas, of course, is the Temiskaming region. And so, next slide, please. We need to skip past this one. This shows all the various other recipients in the area. So this shows you a better picture of some of the areas we're serving. And so from North Cobalt up to Haileybury, kind of touches a bit of Temiskaming, then sort of around to New Liskeard. These are the areas that we were awarded. And so these are the areas that we're very much going to be focusing on, bringing high-speed, gigabit speed plus internet connectivity through to end users. And so not only are we, undertaking that effort and certainly have been, awarded subsidy to do so, we're actually, that work is imminent. In fact, we have our power construction crews are going to be walking the areas of Haileybury and within the next couple of weeks to help prepare ourselves to engage in construction. Next slide, please. So here's where we're at. So we've got Haileybury is the one that we're working on immediately, and maybe I'll back up a step. When we received the subsidy, we broke the lots that we were awarded into what we call segments. One of those segments is Haileybury, another one's Cobalt, another one is New Liskeard. And so, and just given the sheer scale and scope of this project, it's about 2,000 kilometers and affects something like 35,000 poles across the province. We just needed to make it into projects that were a lot smaller and a lot more manageable as far as project management and executions are concerned. And so the first one is Haileybury. So design is largely complete. We're just in the final throes of doing that work. And that process, because we're putting the fiber for the most part on power poles, involves work with Hydro One. So we're going through the permit application process and approval process. And again, that is largely complete. From that point, we're then going to receive or prepare our finalized construction drawings, both for the power make-ready work as well as the telecom make-ready work. And then, of course, leveraging those drawings and activating those permits, we will then engage in power make-ready construction and the telecom make-ready construction. And so, as you can see, we're doing the pole structure analysis piece. We're just about getting the permitting, and then that's why we're getting to this community engagement, so that, when you see us in the community, when we start talking about the services, everyone is aware of what we're doing and certainly has the ability to ask any questions should they feel the need to do so. Next slide, please. So North Cobalt, we've done some of the work as far as the field analysis is concerned. So again, walking the pole lines, and of course this are our sub-trades, walking the pole lines, taking images, and getting the data about the infrastructure that's there. But we haven't begun the design and drawing process yet. Next slide, please. And then similarly with New Liskeard, again, we've done the fiber design. This one we actually haven't done the pole walk yet, but that will be imminently coming here in the next 12 to 24 months. And so just maybe a bit of background for Council's awareness, the ACIP program is right now mandated to be completed by the end of December 2025. So all this work will need to be completed by then, and that is very much the timeline that we're driving towards right now with our team and with our trades. Next slide, please. So this is Galaxy Fiber, and so the Community Network Partners Group, as again mentioned sort of at the onset, very much is the infrastructure manufacturer as part of our enterprise. And so that includes, of course, the community engagement piece. That includes interfacing with the various government entities and the various regulatory authorities that are affected by it. But that entity doesn't provide internet service. That'll be Galaxy Fiber. And so that is a group within the Crown Telecom Group. And there will be the placards that you see, an example of which is on the slide, that will have the various plans and prices and that sort of thing. And they'll also be the ones that you'll interface with from getting your services as well as getting installations done and that sort of deal. Next slide, please. So this one I think is pretty self-explanatory. Benefits of high-speed access, as mentioned. It allows, particularly in this new virtual world, and a bit of background about myself. Before I was at Crown, I worked with the second largest rural wireless ISP in Canada out in Alberta. And for me, our mission was very much about enabling the viability of these smaller communities and rural communities longer term, right? The fact that people wouldn't have, or kids wouldn't have to graduate high school and leave home to go and pursue jobs and careers, they could very much do that all within the communities in which they grew up, as well as keep all the economic benefit there and allow the families and the communities to thrive in those areas. And so that very much is sort of the mission behind what we do. Of course, it enables the economic benefit, quality of life, and then, as a tag along to that, as these communities continue to grow and to thrive, it facilitates municipal services to support those developing populations. Next slide, please. So ultimately, the ask. Obviously, it's important that you guys and certainly your community as a whole is aware of what we're doing, but we look for advocacy, right? I mean, we know that it's good. You guys know that it's good, but sometimes changes can be scary. And we certainly want to make sure that people know that this is a good thing that's coming for them. We're not looking for salesmanship on behalf of public officials, but certainly want you guys to direct any questions or concerns our way, as well as to let people know why we're here and what we're doing and the benefits to it. And if they want to engage, we're very happy to get them involved in that process, because the more information we get from the community, the better job that we can do in deploying the network. And the same thing goes, for inclusivity and to educate. Again, if the more information and the more interaction we can have with community as we're going forward and building these networks, the more successful the outcome will be of the deployment. So that's all I had for you guys today. Is there any questions in that regard?
Thanks for your presentation, Adam. I appreciate it. Does anybody have any questions for Adam? Councillor Whelan?
Yeah, thanks for the presentation. Just quickly, is this project part of the Province of Ontario's bid process from last year?
It is, yes.
Okay. So I'm reading page 2. So is this similar to Telesat, where it's comes in by satellite and out by wire?
No. So the build for the ASA program specifically is fiber end-to-end. So it'll be fiber from the home all the way to the internet, which is the data exchange points down in Toronto.
But it's not satellite to a ground station then?
No, it is not.
Okay. And looking at where you are now and reviewing the polls, so you intend on doing the last mile as well, the rural customers?
We are, certainly. As you can imagine, the last mile piece has the complexities in that we can't go on people's property until they give us permission. So we know there's a community engagement element to that, where we have to get that approval. But certainly the intent is to build as well as deliver the last mile. In fact, there's an obligation within the subsidy that requires us to provide that last mile access within a certain window of time.
Good. Thanks very much.
No worries.
Thanks, Councillor Whelan. Any other questions? No? Okay, Adam, that's it. You're off the hook. Thanks so much for your presentation. We appreciate it, and looking forward for some further updates.
Excellent. Appreciate the time, everyone. Thank you very much.
It takes us to item 9B, and I believe virtually as well. We have Jacob Hanlon, a Municipal Program Coordinator for Food Cycle Science Corporation, and he's going to give us a presentation on Food Waste Diversion Program. The floor is yours, Jacob.
Thank you very much. Just want to start by saying good evening, Mayor and councillors and members of staff. Thanks very much for having me tonight. My name is Jacob Hanlon. As mentioned, I'm the Municipal Program Coordinator at Food Cycle Science, and I'm excited to be here to share some information on our food waste diversion program for municipalities. You can go to the next slide, please. So just to start off by briefly speaking a little bit about who we are as a company, Food Cycle Science is a Canadian company based out of Ottawa, and we are 100% focused on food waste diversion solutions. We do this using our innovative technology called the Food Cycler. So our in-home food recycler is sold direct to consumers through some partnerships with companies like Vitamix, but then we also put them into classrooms through some partnerships with not-for-profits such as Eco Schools Canada, and then as well to municipalities as a waste diversion program, and that's what I'm going to speak about today. Next slide, please. So our municipal solutions help many small, rural, remote, and northern communities in Canada keep food waste out of their landfills. We're currently working with 105 Canadian municipalities across 9 provinces and 2 territories, from Nelson in British Columbia up to Hay River in the Northwest Territories, and then many communities in Ontario who often face struggles with food waste management or where curbside green bin programs aren't necessarily the most viable option for them. So not too far from you, we have programs running in Deep River, in Hearst, and Espanola, to name a few. Next slide, please. So to briefly speak on the problem with food waste, the main problem with it is avoidable, but it accounts for a large portion of our household waste. It's often made up of mostly liquid, and it's heavy, and it can freeze in the wintertime, so it's quite the hassle for residents. On top of that, when we put food waste in the landfill, it is responsible for generating some pretty harmful greenhouse gases. So all these factors make it so that food waste is a problem that has a strong municipal impact. Next slide, please. So one of the impacts to municipalities is, since food waste makes up such a large portion of our waste stream, it is causing our landfills to fill up quickly. Operating a landfill, as you know, is quite costly for a municipality, and we obviously want to extend the lifespan of our landfills for as long as we can. The environmental impact is, when you have food waste in the landfill, it's typically squished between tons and tons of food waste, and it doesn't have the necessary access to oxygen that it would have in its normal environment for breaking down in a composter, let's say. And so when it's in this anaerobic environment, it ends up producing methane instead of CO2, and methane is quite a bit more harmful for our environment than CO2 is. In our communities, when we put food waste in the garbage, it causes some odors which can be unpleasant for humans, but it can be quite interesting for animals like bears and raccoons who like to go through our trash. So removing food waste from the garbage eliminates these issues, and it reduces the overall volume of what's going into your waste stream. So this can save on hauling and disposal fees. It can definitely save space in the landfill, and it can save residents on some hassle as well and any extra fees that they might face. Next slide, please. So we often get asked the question, haven't we solved this problem already? And yes, there are green bins, which are common in big cities and places with high population density and the right infrastructure as well, but this can be cost prohibitive and it can be operationally challenging to implement. Many people in your community might backyard compost, and while this is a great solution, fortunately backyard composting is not feasible for everybody. It's certainly not a year-round solution, and there's still a concern about bears and other animals getting into that backyard bin, so participation can definitely be a challenge with backyard composting. The final easiest solution with our food waste is to continue to landfill the organic waste, but the long-term impacts here, as I mentioned, are quite costly and harmful to the environment. Next slide, please. So what we've done at Food Cyclers, we've proposed a different way to deal with our food waste, and this focuses on making it really easy and clean to deal with and right in our homes. So we've essentially built this small kitchen appliance. It's about the size of a bread machine, and you put in your food waste, and this can include meat, poultry, fish, dairy, even some small bones. And then you click your button, and then in 8 hours or less, so typically an overnight cycle, it transforms your food waste into a dry, odorless, and nutrient-rich soil amendment. quite similar to a fertilizer. The machine can be used anywhere that has a plug. Most residents in our programs either store it in their kitchen, basement, even a heated garage. But pretty much, I know they're often talked about as countertop composting units. But as just a food recycler that all it needs is an outlet, it can really go anywhere in the house. Next slide, please. So this is just to kind of depict the two different units that we have available for residents in our municipal programs. Biggest difference is the FC30 on the left there. It has a 2.5 liter capacity. We recommend it for households of 1 to 2 people. And then the Eco 5 on the right has a 5 liter capacity. And we recommend that for households of 3 people or more. But within our municipal programs, we ultimately leave it up to the resident to choose which model best suits their household. Next slide, please. And so I just want to emphasize here in the process, which is 8 hours or less, there's about a 90% reduction in the weight and volume of food waste from what you put in to the byproduct that comes out. So that end product, if it does end up in the waste stream somehow, it's still greatly reduced in terms of the nutrient value that's still retained within that byproduct. It can go right into your garden, into your lawn. It's a very beneficial for soil health, and it helps with plant growth as well. Next slide, please. And yeah, speaking of the byproduct there, we call it the foodalizer as a play on fertilizer, but basically it has many beneficial uses. I mentioned that most residents like to put it in their garden soil, but it can be added to a backyard composter, and it's just already sped up along that decomposition process. It can be integrated into leaf and yard waste systems or in an existing green bin program. But another popular option that we find with some of our municipal partners is we'll work with them and find a local farm or community garden and partner up for the residents who don't necessarily have the space or the land to use the byproduct. And then that way it's still being used within the community, and that food waste isn't ending up in the landfill. Next slide, please. So I'll just speak on the economic impact here a little bit. When you compare the food cycler as a method of food waste diversion, and when you compare that to the traditional method of managing waste, that traditional method is a heavily burdened system. There's unrelenting costs, there's trucking, labor, and maintenance. It's a process that has a lot of cogs in the wheel, whereas with the food cycler program, it's a decentralized approach. It happens right at home. It empowers residents to manage their own waste and turn it into something that they can actually use. And on top of that, it avoids any unnecessary greenhouse gas emissions that would come from putting more trucks on the road. Next slide, please. So one thing we've learned from working with our 100 plus municipal partnerships is that residents are quite interested in being part of the solution when it comes to sustainable initiatives and any kind of climate change action plans. They want to try new things, they want options, and they want their government to bring these types of opportunities to their community. So with the food cycler, you have to bring something to your residents that's innovative, it's tangible, and they don't need to live in a big city to be able to divert their organics. Next slide, please. So I mentioned that we're working with many municipalities across Canada. To date, we've completed pilot programs in over 50 municipalities and over 6,000 households. And part of these pilot programs are we send out a survey to residents who are participating, and we collect some data from them. The results that we've had have been overwhelmingly positive. We've been able to achieve a significant amount of net waste diversion. We've had a generous user experience rating of 4.6 out of 5 stars. And one that I'll just really highlight here and focus on is we have a participation rate of 98%. And what that means is, of all the residents who have enrolled in the food cycler program in their municipality, 98% of them claim that they're going to continue using the food cycler as their method of food waste diversion. And this type of successful number is very rare to come by in terms of other types of programs, such as a curbside green bin program. Using Ottawa, where I am as an example, we've had the green bin for over a decade now, and we only have about a 57% participation rate. So it's really encouraging to see that residents are enjoying using the food cycler and are continuing to use it. Another point I'll mention is that after the initial pilot program, many municipalities are expanding their programs to more households within their community. I'll just use the example of Nelson out in British Columbia. They completed 2 successful pilot programs, and they're now in the process of adding a food cycler into every home in their city of about 11,000 people. Next slide, please. So part of what makes these programs so successful and allows residents to be so willing to participate is we have some federal funding that goes towards the program. So basically last year we were awarded a grant of $400,000 to go towards these programs. This is from Agri-Food and Agriculture Canada in partnership with Impact Canada, and it's part of Canada's Food Waste Reduction Challenge, which is a challenge run by the federal government to reduce Canada's food waste. We are right now in the process of basically waiting to see if we're one of 2 grand prize winners of $1.5 million through this program, and if we are, we're basically going to just put all that grant money right back into these programs and help continue to subsidize the costs for residents. Any municipalities that partner with us, they'll have the right of first refusal on any subsequent funding as well. Next slide, please. So a few slides left before I wrap up. This is just to kind of show the overview of what the pilot program looks like. It's typically a 12-week project. Residents will purchase a food cycler at the subsidized rate from their municipality. They'll use the unit for 12 weeks and track the number of cycles per week. And then at the end of those 12 weeks, residents get to keep their food cycler for good, but we ask that they complete that survey that I mentioned before. And from that, we collect the data, and through that, we can evaluate the program success. We basically put all that data into a final presentation or a report. We present that back to you, and from there you can see how much diversion has come from the program. We can estimate diversion for the next year, 2, 3 years, and we can use this data to help support future waste management decision making or to expand the program further. Next slide, please. So this is the pricing structure that we use within our municipal programs. You'll see at the top there, there's the retail price of the 2 units. That's what you would find on Amazon or on the Vitamix website. And basically, the program works based on a subsidy model where Food Cycle Science provides that initial discount, and we add in that federal investment from Impact Canada. This brings the price of the units down by 50%. And then we ask that the municipality subsidizes by $100 per household, regardless of which machine the resident chooses. And then the resident pays that final $150 or $300, depending on which model they choose. And then after that 12-week pilot program, the food cycler is theirs to keep. We find that this cost-sharing model, it's really allowed us to find the best participation when residents are putting some of their own money in. They're going to use their machine, and they're going to use it a lot. Next slide, please. So I believe this is my second to last one before I wrap up. These are just some pilot size recommendations based on our experience. For a municipality of your size, we'd recommend the 100 household pilot program. Since the municipal subsidy is $100 per household, that would be a municipal investment of $10,000 plus shipping and taxes. This is what would bring the opportunity for 100 households to use food cyclers, but we're happy to adapt the program based on your needs and your budget and resident demand as well. So happy to discuss that and tailor that program so that it fits your municipality best. Next slide, please. So this is my last one here before I wrap up. I'm not going to go through every point, but these are just basically some reasons that may resonate with you as to why you should consider the pilot program and partnering with us. You obviously get an opportunity to trial this technology at a well below market rate. And if there's any questions about kind of, the procurement aspect of things or going with an RFP, we are an official supplier through Canoe. And on top of that, you'll extend the life of your landfill. I know that that's a big topic these days, especially food waste as well. So you'll see some pretty immediate and impactful benefits to your community, including reduced greenhouse gas emissions and waste diversion. So next slide here. With all that being said, we'd like to welcome Temiskaming Shores as a partner in the Food Waste Reduction Challenge, especially based on our success with other Northwestern Ontario communities. We really believe that your community would be a great fit for the program. Today, I'm just asking that you kindly receive our presentation as information. And if there is any interest in partnering with us in a funded pilot program, we ask that you refer this to a staff member to come back with a report and recommendation. So thank you very much. I really appreciate the time, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Awesome. Thanks so much for your presentation, Jacob. And, we just finished closing our landfill site and opening a new one, so I think it's a timely discussion. And does anybody have any questions for Jacob? No, seeing none. Oh, sorry. Councillor Peltier-Living.
Thanks a lot for the presentation. I was curious of the lifespan of the food cycler, please.
Yes, thank you for the question. So the smaller machine has a lifespan of between 5 and 7 years, and the larger one between 7 and 10 years. Within our municipal programs as well, there's a warranty of 1 year on each unit. We have a customer support team, and if there's any issues with the unit, our team handles that. We help the residents troubleshoot, and we replace the units through the warranty if necessary.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, Jacob, we will send it off to our staff and get a report back, and we'll make a recommendation from that point on. So thanks again for your presentation. Have a great evening. We're going to move on to item 9C, and that's Steve Ackland from Kemp Elliott and Blair, and Stephanie, our treasurer, is just going to present the 2022 audited financial statements. Who would like to start?
Good evening, Mayor and Council, and all those present this evening. So just to provide some information about the audit and the process, Section 296 of the Municipal Act requires municipalities to appoint a licensed auditor who's responsible for annually auditing the accounts and transactions of the municipality, expressing an opinion on the financial statements, and also performing other duties as required by the municipality. So Mr. Steve Ackland from the firm of Kemp Elliott and Blair is the municipality's auditor, and he will be presenting the 2022 consolidated audited financial statements for the city this evening. Myself and the managers are also available for questions, and with that being said, I'd like to invite Mr. Ackland to present the opinion and the financials.
Thanks, Stephanie. Good evening, Steve. You got 3 minutes.
So we'll start off, as Stephanie mentioned, this to provide an opinion, so we're just going to...
There wasn't a number there.
What's that? Well, I wasn't sure if it was. So I'm just going to read over the opinion paragraph, not the whole audit report. We have audited the consolidated financial statements of the Corporation of the City of Temiskaming Shores, which comprise the consolidated statement of financial position as at December 31, 2022, and the consolidated statements of operations, change net financial assets, net debt, and cash flows for the year then ended, and notes to the financial statements, including a summary of significant accounting policies. In our opinion, the accompanying consolidated financial statements present fairly in all material respects the financial position of the Corporation of the City of Temiskaming Shores as at December 31, 2022, and the results of its operations, changed net financial assets, net debt, and cash flows for the year then ended in accordance with Canadian public sector accounting standards, which is what you want us to say. So next slide.
We did keep the 3 minutes.
Yeah, they were done. Okay, so this is the consolidated statement of financial position. As you can see, the cash decreased quite a bit this year, but that was part of the budget. You had budgeted transfer from reserves of about $7 million, and that's about the decrease in your cash balance. There's a little bit of an increase in your taxes receivable. Really, that's kind of due to a backlog in registrations, just due to COVID. There weren't any registrations being done, and they're now being caught up. For your accounts receivable, you did have a lot of capital projects this year, which we'll get into as well. So that's just funding that hasn't been received at the end of the year. And then there's no change in your inventories for resale. So your total financial assets at the end of the year were at 14.6 million. On the liability side, there's a slight increase in your payables. Again, that's just really due to some of the invoices outstanding for your capital projects. You had some deferred revenues of 525,000, a little bit of OCIF, but mostly NORDS, and then there's some FedNor funding in there and some PDAC pre-registrations. Your solid waste landfill closure and post-closure liability, that calculation came in at just over 1.5 million. There were some costs that were incurred this year that helped reduce that liability some. And then at the end of the year, your municipal debt's at 11.8 million to give you total liability, total liabilities of 18.9 million. And so that brings your net financial asset net debt position to a net debt of 4.3 million. That essentially covers your reserves, the amounts to be recovered, which includes your municipal debt and solid waste landfill closure and post-closure unfunded portion, and then any capital projects that hadn't received their financing yet. So there's about 1.5 million of capital projects that we're supposed to receive borrowing, and the borrowing just hasn't been received yet, mostly as a plan to try and get a better interest rate, which working on. So, but that's not really anything to be concerned about, the net debt position. I think that's something that's going to be expected with municipalities as you take on large projects and use debt to pay for it. It's just kind of the reality. But if you look at your non-financial assets, your tangible capital assets, so they rose by about $9 million, and your net debt increased by about $5 million. So really, you're a little bit ahead of the game as far as the difference there. Any questions on the statement? Okay.
Sure, since you asked, Steve. The question's more around the taxes receivable and the accounts receivable.
Yep.
And there is a materials increase in both of those. And that's looking at 2022.
Yep.
So maybe the question, maybe for you or for staff, is have we seen that decrease in 2023, or is that continuing to grow?
The last time I checked that number, it was around that amount, but that doesn't include the adjustment that we make for doubtful accounts.
Yeah.
So
increased a little. There's really about 2 taxpayers that have multiple properties that account for about 1/3 of that balance. So not quite a third, we'll say 1/4 of the balance. So once something can be done about those, it's going to make a big difference.
Okay.
And we have since reestablished the collections process for taxes, so we're getting a good handle on that, moving things along.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome. Next slide, please. So this is actually going to jump to one of the notes. So we have under PSAB, PSAB includes amortization, but it doesn't include long-term debt or your capital expenditures. So we have this statement schedule that we provide that kind of brings you back to your budget basis. So it does include long-term debt and the capital purchases, and does not include amortization. So just going through the revenues first, as you can see, for the most part, what you budgeted is what you received. A couple areas that were a little higher on the federal grants. Most of that's related to the PDAC. There was just more funding received than expected. But when we get into the expenditures, you're going to see that under your planning expenditures, the costs, they're up as well. So, but the funding was there to cover that increase. And then the investment income actually got a better return than expected. Everything's in the bank account, and you're getting a good return on the bank account. So right now, that seems to be the way to go with that. And then the penalties and interest, obviously, they increased with the increase in the receivable. And then the POA revenues, just the revenues just weren't there this year. They're working on it. There was took on a project for the Part 3 offenses, and there's just a backlog and just going to take time to catch up. So overall, you budgeted $28.5 million for your operating revenues, and the actual were $30 million. So, like I said, a little bit more than you expected. On the capital side, no real big difference. I mean, provincial grants were a little bit higher, but not too much. So your capital budgeted revenues were $3.7 million, and actual were $3.9 million. And then, as I mentioned, with the capital projects, you had budgeted to take on debt of $3.7 million. You only took on just under $600,000. So yeah, there'll be some new debt coming up in this year and next year to cover some of those project costs. So your total revenues budgeted were $36 million, and the actual were just under $35 million. Any questions so far on the revenues? Okay, we'll move on to the expenditures. Next slide. Again, nothing, for the most part, what you budgeted was pretty much what you did. Under the protection, those costs are down a little bit, but that goes with the decrease in the POA revenues. On the environmental services, the main reason for the increase there is the water breaks. There were just, they can only estimate so much, and unfortunately there were a lot more breaks than expected this year. And then, as I mentioned, the planning and development, those costs are a little higher, but the revenues were more than enough to offset that. So your budgeted expenditures were $25.6 million, actual were $26.4. On the capital expenditure side, you budgeted just under $16 million, actual were $13 million. For the most part, you did the projects you expected to do, and they were within the budget. And then on the long-term debt repayments, budgeted 1.7, the actual is 1.6. So at the end of the year, you'd budgeted a deficit of $7.2 million, which was essentially transfer from reserves, and the actual was $6.6 million. $4 million of that was transfer from reserves. There was an increase in your deficit of $1.2 million, and again, $1.5 million of that was the capital projects. You just haven't received the borrowing, the loan for those. And then your net debt repayments were not as much as you expected, so there's $1 million there. So if you're looking at that transfer from reserve line, you'd budgeted $7.2 million and actually only transferred $4.3 million. So approximately $3 million ahead of where you were expecting to be, so not too bad. Any questions? Okay, we'll move on to the next slide. So this is the consolidated statement of operations under a PSAB basis. So this does not include the long-term debt or the capital expenditures, but the expenditures will include amortization. On the revenue side, the only difference here is that the long-term debt proceeds don't show up. Next slide, please. And then on the expenditure side, again, these do include amortizations, so the differences are still pretty much the same as what we went over. Although on the transportation services, the expenditures are a little bit higher, and that's because the amortization was a little bit higher than budgeted. So your annual surplus, you'd budgeted 2.6 million, and the actual was 3.8 million. So did a little better than you expected. Any questions so far? No. Next slide, please. So the consolidated statement of change in net financial assets, net debt. So you have your annual surplus of 2.6 million budgeted, 3.8 million actual. Then you have your changes for your tangible capital assets, being your acquisition and amortization. There was a bit of a loss on the tangible capital assets, but you had proceeds of 137,000. And then there was an increase in your prepaid expenses, 569. A lot of that relates to the 2023 PDAC, so a lot of those were already paid. So you'd budgeted a decrease in your net financial assets net debt of 9.2 million, and the actual was just under 5.6. So your net financial assets net debt at the end of the year is just over net debt of just over 4.3 million. Any questions? Next page. That's right. Consolidated statement of cash flows. So you had an annual surplus of just under 3.9 million, and then when you add back your amortization and the loss on disposal, brings you to 8 million. You had a net change in non-cash working capital items of a decrease of almost 1.3 million. So you had cash provided by operating activities of 6.9 million. For your capital activities, cash used for capital activities of just over 13 million. And then your financing activities, you had cash used for financing activities of just over $1 million, which brings you to your decrease in cash of 7.3 million. So your cash decreased from 13.6 to 6.3. But like I said, you had been building up your reserves for a while, used them this year, so still not bad shape. 6.3 million in the bank. Any questions so far? So last schedule I'm going to go over, and I apologize for the formatting. It kind of went wonky on me. So this is your accumulated surplus, which is made up of your reserves, surpluses, and deficits. So your working capital reserve, general is at 6.8 million, and environmental at 2 million. And I just want to point out that after all the budgeted transfers from reserves, at the end of the year we had about an $800,000 transfer back into those two working fund reserves. So. And then the big decrease there in your reserves and reserve funds is the landfill reserve fund. So there's about $2 million of costs related to the expansion. So that's been covered by that reserve fund. And then your amounts to be recovered, that's your long-term debt, and then there's an unfunded portion of the landfill liability, which is just the liability amount of 1.5 less that reserve fund. And then, as I mentioned, there's capital deficit of about 1.5 million, and that's all relates to borrowing that will be received this year. Actually, I think you're applying for it now, right? The 1.5.
There is a loan application in the package tonight, but not for the full 1.5, just a portion of that.
A portion of it, yeah. So yeah, as you're able to get better rates, then start to borrow that. So that brings you to your reserve surplus and deficit balance of 4.3 million negative, which is your net debt position. Any questions? Okay, thank you for your time. And I just want to mention that I did send an email to everyone with our representation letter. So once the statements are approved, if you can check your email, it'll be through DocuSign, and get that letter signed. I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks for the presentation, Steve. I do have a resolution in front of me. Be it resolved that Council of the City of Temiskaming Shores hereby acknowledges receipt and approves the 2022 consolidated financial statements for the City of Temiskaming Shores as prepared by the firm of Kemp, Elliott & Blair, LLP, Chartered Accountants, and that Council directs the Treasurer to provide public notice that a copy of the 2022 consolidated financial statements are available at City Hall and on the City's website in accordance with Section 295 of the Municipal Act 2001. Can I get a mover, please? Councillor Wilson, Councillor Ducharme. Discussion? All in favor? And that motion is carried. It takes us to item 10, correspondence and communications. So 10A, Hydro One Networks Inc., Forestry Services, and that's the 2024 Vegetation Maintenance Program for August 2023, and that's received for information. 10B, Office of the Fire Marshal's communique, and that's the interpretation of 6.3 of the Fire Protection and Prevention Act 2023-0906. That was received for information purposes. Item 10C from Narissa Doy and Matthew Kroll, residents, an application to purchase municipal land, and that was referred to the clerk to process in accordance with bylaw number 2015-160, a policy for the disposal of real property. 10D, the Association of Municipal Managers, Clerks and Treasurers of Ontario. And that's Local Government Week for October the 15th to the 21st, 2023. And we do have a proclamation presented under Section 14 under New Business tonight. Item E from the District of Temiskaming Social Services Administration Board. DSAB's quarterly report for Q2 2023. And that was from April 1st to June the 30th. That was received for information purposes. Item F, the Northern Ontario Service Deliveries Association, NOSDA, the 2023 Annual General Meeting, and that was received for information purposes. Item G from Sherry Edgar, Municipal Clerk, Town of Midland, the resolution for support, catch and release, justice in Ontario 2023, and that was received for information purposes. Item H from Brian Smith, Mayor of the Town of Wasaga Beach, the resolution of support for illegal car rallies, and that was received for information purposes. Item I from Jill Vianu, the Assistant Deputy Minister for Infrastructure Programs and Projects Division, the administrative penalties regulation under the Building Broadband Faster Act 2021, and that was received for information. Item J from Phil Whitten, Superintendent, the Commander, Municipal Policing Bureau, and that was our 2024 annual billing statement, and that was referred to the Treasurer and the Police Services Board. Item K, the Earlton-Temiskaming Regional Airport Authority, the ETRAA, and that was the Manager's report for the months of May to August 2023, and that was received for information purposes. Item L from the Earlton-Temiskaming Regional Airport Authority, the financials for the months of May to August 2023, that was received for information purposes. Item M from Six Sock Circular Limited, it's the Indigenous Startup Company for Textile Recycling Program, and that was referred to the Manager of Environmental Services. Item N from Catherine Fife, Waterloo MPP and Finance and Treasury Board Critic, requesting support for Bill 21, Fixing Long-Term Care Amendment Act, till death do us part, 2022. That was received for information. Item O, from the Temiskaming Shores Public Library, raise support resolution, the improvement of provincial funding to public libraries. And there is a motion presented under Section 14 for new business. Item P, for the Board of Health for the Temiskaming Health Unit. 3, the support resolution for the municipal expense allocation. And that motion is presented under Section 14 under new business. Item Q, Federation of Canadian Municipalities, the Green Energy Fund. Read the successful funding application up to $160,000 to establish a roadmap to net zero emissions for 8 municipal buildings in the city of Temiskaming Shores, and funding agreement presented under Section 15 under bylaws. And after all of that, can we get any discussion? Councillor Whalen?
Just quickly on item E for the DSAB report. On page 106, there's a footnote that it should be noted that at the time of writing this report, July 28, 2023, the ministry has not released the funds, so there could be issues completing the projects on time. Do we know if the province has finally forwarded the funding? They're famous for announcing funding and not writing checks, so.
Yeah, Councillor Foley?
I unfortunately missed the last meeting, but I don't know if we've gotten that yet from anyone.
Yeah, I do believe they have received the funding, Danny. I think that when they do give us the report, they just want to make sure that what they had originally planned and budgeted for is what was received. And I do believe they did receive it, but I will confirm and get back to you.
Good, thank you. Just sometimes it takes a bunch of municipal motion or resolutions to nudge them into writing checks. So thank you.
You're very welcome. Any other comments? Concerns? Okay.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind bringing back the was the catch and release for the Midland item G from Sherry Edgar, Municipal Clerk, Town of Midland, resolution of support for catch and release. I wouldn't mind bringing that back. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. That was noted. Councillor Peltier-Living.
I'd like to see back the Bill 21 amendment to till death do us apart.
Okay. That is noted. Any other comments, questions? Okay, I do have a resolution in front of me. Be it resolved, the Council for the City of Temiskaming Shores agrees to deal with communication items 10A through Q in accordance with the agenda of references. Can I get a mover, please? It's Councillor Whalen, seconded by Councillor Peltier-Living. Discussion? All in favor? That motion is carried. Takes us to item 11, Committees of Council, Community and Regional. I do have a resolution in front of me. Be it resolved that the following minutes be accepted for information. Item A, the minutes of the Committee of Adjustment meeting held on July the 26th, 2023. Minutes of the Earlton Temiskaming Regional Airport Authority meeting held on May the 18th, 2023. And C, the minutes from the Temiskaming Shores Public Library Board meeting held on June the 28th, 2023. Can I get a mover, please? Councillor Ducharme, seconded by Councillor Foley. Discussion? Councillor Whalen?
Yeah, just in regards to item B, Earlton Temiskaming Regional Airport Authority, and the previous two managers' reports, we see that Harris is now a participant, so good. Looks good on the board to be expanding, so thank you for that.
Thanks, Councillor Whalen. I appreciate it. I know we are in discussions with a few other municipalities, and hopefully we'll see some more come on board as well. We had sent out a tender process for the farming of the fields by the Earlton Airport, and we'll see the revenues increase by $20,000 on top of that as well. So it is nice to see things moving in the right direction. So thanks for your acknowledgement. Okay, we do have a motion in front of us. All in favor? The motion is carried. Brings us to item 12, reports by members of council. Does anybody have any reports they would like to bring up? Councillor Palchel-Living.
Yeah, I just want to thank the organizers for the training session with Wayne McKenzie that was taking place right before Truth and Reconciliation Day. I thought it was a really good time to spend together, and Mr. McKenzie did a great job just sharing, and so thanks for inviting us to that.
Awesome. Thank you. I did want to mention a few things. First off, we did hold our first meeting for the Community Safety Wellbeing Plan. It was very, very well attended. We are setting up an overall governing committee, and we are meeting I don't know the date. Do you remember the date? It's in the next couple of weeks anyways to really start to look at implementation. They did pick 3 key areas that they wanted to start with the implementation process. So really nice to see a lot of work went into developing the Community Safety Wellbeing Plan. Unfortunately, the Solicitor General hasn't allocated any funding to assist with the implementation of it. However, all of the local municipalities, for the most part, everybody that participated in the front end are supporting with the funding and moving forward with implementing it. And I think it's only going to make our community a much better place to live and a safer place to live. The fire department, the grand opening, and I just wanted to say congratulations to Steve and his team, but also to Matt for all of his hard work in really overseeing that major project, come to fruition. The ribbon cutting was nice. It was nice to see, but it was the day after when you seen the community engage, at the barbecue and really seeing, what the building, looks like now. And, we talked about a lot of the changes that have happened, with the education and the credentials that are going to be needed for the volunteer firefighters going forward. And it is nice to see a training center built within that facility as well. So, very well done. And the last item I just wanted to mention is Roma's coming up fast. It's happening in January. But we do have a short time frame if we want to take advantage of the early registration, and I think that they have to be in by next week. So I'm just wondering, I know we were sending 2 folks in the past, and I'm just wondering if we can see if there's any interest in anybody attending the Roma conference in January. Councillor Whalen?
Yeah, just for council's benefit, I am registered, but it's paid for outside of the city. City doesn't cover me, so that's just so you're aware.
Okay, awesome. And Councillor Wilson, I think you are attending as well. Is your registration paid for?
Yes, and all expenses, so we have room for others, yeah.
Okay, perfect. So if everybody can just think about whether that works for them, and if you can forward your name to us as quickly as possible. We just want to take advantage of the early registration. I know that it's usually, we have some good delegations, to lobby for, and so if you are available, please let us know. We do have to get the names, forward, so it's not just holding 2 seats. It's really, so the sooner we get that confirmation, the better. And that's all I had. Anybody else? Okay, takes us on to item 13, notice of motions. Is there any notice of motions tonight? Seeing none, we'll move on to 14, new business. 14A, Vision Zero Road Safety Charter. And I know Councillor Wilson did give a notice of motion at the September 19th, 2023 regular council meeting. I do have a resolution in front of me. Whereas the principles of Vision Zero were first implemented in Sweden in 1997, and these principles are based on safe system road design, and many other jurisdictions around the world and across Canada have adopted Vision Zero, including the Netherlands, Ireland, Norway, Denmark, Australia, New Zealand, Montreal, Edmonton, Toronto, Kingston, among many others. And whereas it is inevitable that humans will make mistakes when using the road network, and safe system design principles reduce the kinetic energy or crashes that occur when these mistakes are made, and thereby drastically increase the chance of survival for those involved in a crash. And whereas Council for the City of Temiskaming Shores supports the fundamental message of Vision Zero, fatalities and serious injuries on our roads are unacceptable and preventable, and efforts must be taken to reduce traffic-related deaths and injuries to zero. And whereas safe roads and streets are a vital component of a livable and successful community, and whereas Vision Zero is a strategy supported by safe systems policies to eliminate traffic fatalities and serious injuries while increasing safety, health, and equitable mobility for all road users. Therefore, be it resolved that Council for the City of Temiskaming Shores directs staff to investigate the development of a Vision Zero road safety charter or an action plan to guide the design and management of a safe transportation network with the goal of making city roads and streets safer for all road users. And further, that staff present their findings in an administrative report in future Committee of the Whole meeting for Council consideration. Can I get a mover, please? Thanks, Councillor Wilson. Thanks, Councillor Ducharme. Discussion? Councillor Whalen.
Yeah, thanks. I'm a fan of Vision Zero. I've read a lot about it. I think it's a good thing. What I am worried about is staff time and the pressures on staff trying to develop an action plan and then try and follow it every time we have a project. And the reason I say that is because, you know, time is money and this isn't budgeted for anywhere. And most of the consulting and engineering firms that we work with are currently upgrading themselves on Vision Zero. So I'm wondering if, similar to environmental impact, if we don't have a clause in our tender process that say when financially feasible, suggestions for Vision Zero be accompany the design and total cost of the project. Again, my concern is with staff time and pressures on staff. So is that going to be included, the impact on staff in the final report, or just one of my concerns?
Okay, thanks, Councillor Whalen. Any other questions, comments?
Mayor?
Sure. Councillor Wilson?
Yeah, yes, thank you, Mayor, and thank you for your comments, Councillor Whalen. You know, the principle of Vision Zero is that we need to use that lens of safety. And, you know, one of the things, a lot of these jurisdictions that have been mentioned in the motion, and certainly in other parts of, you know, the world and in Canada, have adopted these principles, both large and small communities, as a way to ensure that when road safety projects are undertaken, or looking at existing road structure, that they use that lens. And so we can ultimately kind of make it what we want to make it, in the sense of what we're able to manage, both financially and with staff resources and so on. It really is about the principle of, you know, designing roads and thinking about roads for humans that make mistakes. And you know, I think one of the key things that we really have to focus on is sort of the grassroots response we've had from the community on one example being the speed concerns, and there are things we can do. Very simple countermeasures that are low cost that we can implement to make our roads safer. And so, you know, a good example being the speed signs that were initiated. There have been small little neighborhoods that have set up their own speed signs. There's been a wider campaign for speed signs. The signs went very quickly. I think as a community, as a council, we have to respond to that and say, look, when we are looking at our roads, there are some things that we can do. And, you know, some of those example of things we can do are you know, things as simple as signal phasing, road diets, lane narrowing, all of these kind of very low-cost things that are proven countermeasures that can start to address the issue of, you know, some of the speeding issues and some of the other safety issues that we have in the community. So I think, you know, we're asking staff to go ahead and implement, to develop a charter or a Vision Zero guideline, and yeah, they need to consider that, what time it will involve from a staff resource point of view. But I think the intention really is to look at the fact that we need to look more closely at them. And just lastly, Mayor, you know, we're seeing it quite widely used provincially. The Ontario Traffic Council, for example, has developed a Vision Zero guide that everybody that is available to municipalities. So from the staffing and consultant perspective, you know, a lot of this has been produced through organizations like the Ontario Traffic Council, who I work with quite a bit. The Ontario Good Roads Association just developed a road safety auditing program that they are rolling out across the province for municipalities to learn about road safety auditing, and we can bring that into a Vision Zero program. It's an excellent program. I took it myself, and it gives tools to smaller, not only large municipalities, but smaller municipalities who are also trying to achieve some of this. There's quite a widespread concern across the province for safer roads. So those are just some of my comments, Mayor, and you know, really what it is about making roads safer and making our community a better place to live, so that people can, you know, use their streets and feel comfortable about using their streets and walking and all forms of mobility. Those are my comments. Thanks, Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Wilson. Councillor Ducharme.
Thanks for both of those comments. I'm wondering about savings in other areas. For example, we did see the Police Services Board, Police Services report, the invoices come through in this council package. One of the biggest line items was motor vehicle incident call-outs, was a very large line item. If that's that's a big municipal, police is a big municipal line item in terms of expense, so I'm wondering if there is some, and maybe we can get a little bit more documentation on if there are other savings to be had through implementing roads that lead to higher levels of safety, that there may be some longer-term cost savings.
Thank you. Councillor Whalen.
Yeah, just as a follow-up, maybe it's the way the resolution's written. It says the development of a Vision Zero road safety charter or action plan. Then it goes on to say to guide the design and management of a safe transportation network. Most of our road projects aren't designed in City Hall. They're done by an outside firm. And we're having a transportation study done right now that's not being done in City Hall. It's being done outside. So I think the way this resolution's written, we're putting this burden on staff, not on any outside entity that we hire to do a future project. That's my concern, is staff, the burden on staff. if you can include that in the report, come back to council before we adopt the charter, then, you know, we can discuss it.
Thanks, Councillor Whelan. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mayor. So just to clarify, Councillor Whelan, the wording, you're concerned about the wording and how it would apply to a project, for example, that we might have consulting engineers involved, and are we asking them to apply safe system principles? Is that kind of where? So that if we are designing something, we're obviously hiring out that design, but we're asking them to implement safe system design when they're designing it. Is that? I mean, that's. I think that's a good thing ultimately, right? When we have a design for a project, we should be ensuring that our consultants or the consulting engineers are using Vision Zero or safe system design, which is actually, quite consistently being used across other jurisdictions as well. So I'm not quite certain how we change that wording, but perhaps that could be addressed in the report that comes back to us for clarification on how staff sees the best way to approach that.
Okay. Councillor Whelan, did you want to?
Can I speak a third time?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. We're all among friends.
That's what I'm getting at, is when we do, we're all, I find this council and the previous council were very environmentally concerned, and we wrote that into our processes, but we didn't have staff go out and create a whole action plan that every movement they made had to, respect the environment. But the way this is written is we're, again, staff don't do the design work and they don't do traffic management studies. So I think we want to take the burden off the staff, put it on to whoever we hire for particular projects is all I'm saying.
Perfect. Thanks for the clarification, Councillor Whelan. Well, my concern is as well as with staff and budget. So when we do start, looking at, if we are going to a third party, it's understanding, what that looks like. So I think to Councillor Wilson's, recommendation is this is something we want to look at. I know some of the other municipalities, the city of North Bay, for example, did want to go out and have a consultant develop that report, and I don't believe it's happened as of yet. I think they ran into some other challenges not associated, to this particular item. But my concern is more the knowledge around the program itself, and I think that education piece is more important at the front end in understanding it, and then I think it'll help us, get a better understanding of what that means. When we start looking at speed limits, we start looking at, running programs, Councillor Wilson, your comment with regards to putting the signs up about slowing it down. And my question is, did that work? And because we need to be able to, whatever we're going to put in or implement, we need to be able to measure so that we can start to see whether or not it's being successful. And I think when you talk about Vision Zero, it does talk about a number of different things, not necessarily just speed limit. There's, the road design and all of that. And I think the scary part is it is a lot of work. And it's absolutely worthwhile, and the payback will be there. It's just who's going to do the work. And I think that's really, the concern. We are a small municipality, and when we say public works, it's probably an individual that's going to do it. So it's really making sure that we understand what are we really saying yes to. And so I think that's more the concern. It's dotting the i's and crossing the t's. So I think everybody I think is on the same page. We want to make our community a safer place. Absolutely. That if nobody feels that way, I think you could probably get up and leave now because the consequences are, we don't need, we just have to go downtown New Liskeard and we see the memorial sites. So we do want to put an end to those. It's just, what is the best way to do it? So I think maybe if I'll turn it over to Mitch, because it's really you that's going to have to do the work. And my question is you see the proposal that's in front of you, and do you or somebody on your team feel confident and comfortable enough to be able to send a report back to council that deals with the motion as it's addressed tonight? And I just want to make sure that we're moving in the right direction and we're not, 2 months from now going to have the same conversation, if that makes any sense. So Mitch?
The short answer is yes.
Awesome.
So I completely agree. It's a task that I can take on. There is some pretty good guidelines to developing a policy. I've printed them out right here. The Ontario Traffic Council did provide a good guideline for programming a Vision Zero, and I think that I can identify solutions that go with Councillor Wilson, but also satisfy Councillor Whalen as well. So I do think it's a big undertaking, but I think it's valuable, and it's something that it's valuable use of my time. I know I have a lot of things on the go, but there's always a little bit more I could do. So.
Awesome. Thanks for your input. Any other questions? No, but thanks for asking. Sure, go ahead, Councillor Wilson.
Thank you for your comments, Mayor, and thank you for your comments, Mitch. And I think the idea behind it is that you're right. We are a small community, and you can look at a plan that suits the size of the community and but there's also another huge advantage being a small community as opposed to a very large community trying to implement something like this is we are actually at a smaller, an earlier stage of this type of thing. So there are some good successes for really small communities doing these kind of things. So and just one last point to answer your question regarding the signs. The reason I brought the sign up is it's showing that clearly there's a concern from the community, and that's what I've brought this forward for. Typically, statistically, looking at data, those signs have very limited effect, but they have a very significant effect on seeing the response from the community. So they're a visible response, but they're generally not a very significant speed reduction tool. There are other more effective, low-cost speed reduction tools that can be implemented as well. So I just wanted to sort of finish the discussion with that comment that we can look at something that is suited to the size of our community and the budget we have and the resources that we have. Thanks, Mayor.
You're welcome. Okay, we do have a motion in front of us. All those in favor? And that motion is carried. Brings us to item B, the Township of Matachewan, resolution of support for the legislation to strengthen municipal codes of conduct and compliance. And I do have a resolution in front of me, whereas the Council for the Township of Matachewan adopted a resolution regarding legislation to strengthen municipal codes of conduct and compliance at their regular meeting on August the 16th, 2023. And whereas all Ontarians deserve and expect a safe and respectful workplace, and whereas municipal governments as democratic institutions directly engage with Ontarians and need respectful discourse, and whereas several incidents in recent years of disrespectful behavior and workplace harassment have occurred amongst members of municipal councils, and whereas these incidents seriously and negatively affect the people involved and lower public perceptions of local governments, and whereas municipal codes of conduct are helpful tools to set expectations of council member behavior, and whereas municipal governments do not have the necessary tools to adequately enforce compliance with municipal codes of conduct. Be it resolved that Council for the City of Temiskaming Shores supports the Township of Matachewan's call to the Association of Municipalities of Ontario for the Government of Ontario to introduce legislation to strengthen municipal codes of conduct and associated compliance in consultation with municipal governments, and that the legislation encompasses the Association of Municipalities of Ontario's recommendations for updating municipal codes of conduct to account for workplace safety and harassment, creating a flexible administrative penalty regime adopted to the local economic and financial circumstances of municipalities across Ontario, increasing training of municipal integrity commissioners to enhance consistency of investigations and recommendations across the province, allowing municipalities to apply to a member of the judiciary to remove a sitting member if recommended through the report of a municipal integrity commissioner, and prohibit a member so removed from sitting for election in the term of the removal and the subsequent term of office, and that this legislation be prioritized for the fall of 2023, given the urgency of this issue, and further that this resolution be sent to the Premier of Ontario, the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, the Associate Minister of Women's Social and Economic Opportunity, the MPP for Temiskaming Cochrane, AMO, and the Township of Matachewan. Can I get a mover, please? Thanks, Councillor Graydon. Councillor Whalen. Discussion? Councillor Wilson.
Mayor, thank you, Mayor. Yeah, just recently at my Roma board meetings, there was some significant discussion on this as well, and it continues to be a topic of significant interest around the province, and I know there are numerous municipalities who are looking at supporting these kind of measures. So I just wanted to follow up with a little bit of background on that. Thanks, Mayor.
You're welcome. Any other comments? All in favor? That motion is carried. Brings us to item C. The City of Clarence Rockland, the resolution of support for third-party study of the Ottawa River. And I do have a resolution in front of me, whereas the Council for the City of Clarence Rockland adopted a resolution regarding a third-party study of the Ottawa River in their regulatory meeting on July the 12th, 2023. And whereas the Ottawa River spring freshet period has been unstable over the last 7 years due to management challenges as a result of climate change and the development occurring within its basin. And whereas major flooding has occurred in 2017, 2019, and 2023, impacting numerous residents and municipalities alike, and whereas municipalities along the Ottawa River are concerned with the freshet period and the inability to manage the river and its impacts to residents and municipalities, and whereas a comprehensive study must be undertaken to develop the appropriate management tools and practices to reduce the occurrence of flooding of the Ottawa River. Be it resolved, the Council for the City of Temiskaming Shores supports the City of Clarence Rockland's petition to the Minister of Public Safety of Canada to conduct a third-party study of the Ottawa River and its tributaries and basins to provide the Ottawa River Planning Board better tools to adapt the river to the influence of climate change and from the impact of development, and that Council requests a cross-border consultation board representing the municipalities in support of this petition be created to oversee the scope of work of the study and to provide input into proposed implementation options, and further that a copy of this resolution be sent to the Minister of Public Safety of Canada and the City of Clarence Rockland. Can I get a mover, please? Councillor Wilson. Thanks, Councillor Deschamps. Discussion, and I believe the clerk would like to give an update.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. So following the September 19th regular meeting, Council had just requested some additional information with respect to this resolution of support. So I did reach out to the CAO of the City of Clarence and Rockland, and he discussed that the major flooding that had occurred and the associated issues from 2017-19 and 2023. So he noted that in their specific area, which they're located about an hour east of Ottawa, the river is about 4 kilometers wide, and in those years rose 11 feet. And their municipal resources, they had to dispatch or deployed 15,000 sandbags, which was significant municipal resources. In the Ottawa River, he noted, or the Ottawa River Basin, he noted that there are 13 principal reservoirs, and conditions vary from place to place, which results in differing responses and water flow throughout those areas. And it's understood that environmental changes certainly have an impact on the river system, but so does new development, as well as increased tidal drainage from agricultural land along the river. So their city is seeking support from municipalities that are along the Ottawa River in their request to develop a study to determine the tools required to manage and adapt to the water levels better than they are currently. So they're also requesting that the development of an interprovincial committee to represent the municipalities that support the petition to provide input for the implementation of these options with the ultimate goal of impacting or mitigating the impacts of floods. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Councillor Whelan?
Yeah, my concern is we haven't budgeted for this. It said Council requests a cross-border consultation board representing the municipalities in support of this petition. Shouldn't it say willing municipalities? You know, there could be a lot of travel and meetings, and we haven't budgeted anything for this. And the way it's written, it says we'll be a participant if we support it, so.
Right.
Yeah, it could, you know, if every municipality supports it along the river, it could be a board of 150 people, so I just want to be cautious on that.
No, for sure. And I think, you know, maybe we could, if we do want to support it, Councillor Whelan, we could also look at attending virtually, you know, if it is a big area to cover, and I agree, it's an unbudgeted item, so we can't make a decision to tie us until we get to the budget process, but I think there is ways that we could still, you know, participate without driving costs. Any other questions, or Councillor Deschamps?
Yeah, I agree with you with the concerns about the piece around the board or the committee, but I think hopefully we can come up with some affordable ways to have some input into this process. We are the upstream basin, and my concern is if we're not part of this, we could see the impacts of decisions that are made at that table, and the lake is such an important part of our community, and so that would be my that we find affordable ways to make sure that our input is heard.
Thanks, Councillor Deschamps. Any other comments? I just wanted to mention, because I do participate a fair bit at that time of the year, and a lot of the folks that, and we are at the top end, so you know, I understand the challenges and the flooding that they've seen, but there is a lot of work, a lot of planning that goes on, you know, with the dams and the lakes and everything in our area, and we have regular meetings through that whole process, start to finish, even in the wintertime, talking about what levels, you know, everything is going to be at. So I don't want to leave the impression that there isn't a lot of work and management that goes on, but if there's some things that may help improve the safety piece of it, you know, I think, you know, I definitely, you know, would support, you know, that, but it's just my thoughts. Okay. Any last comments? Okay, we do have a motion in front of us. All those in favor? And that motion is carried. Moving on to item D, the proclamation for Local Government Week in Ontario. And I do have a resolution in front of me, whereas October 15th to the 21st, 2023 is Local Government Week in Ontario, an opportunity to reflect on the vital services delivered by municipal governments. And whereas municipal governments play a vital role in helping to define the character, priorities, physical makeup, and quality of life of communities across Ontario. Be it resolved, the Council for the City of Temiskaming Shores hereby acknowledges and celebrates the work of local municipalities by proclaiming October 15th to the 21st, 2023 as Local Government Week in the City of Temiskaming Shores. Can I get a mover, please? Councillor Green. It's going to be Councillor Whalen. Discussion? All in favor? That motion is carried. Brings us to item E. The Temiskaming Shores Public Library Board, the resolution of support for the improvement of provincial funding to public libraries. I do have a resolution in front of me, whereas the Temiskaming Shores Public Library Board adopted a resolution regarding improvement to provincial funding for public libraries at their meeting on September the 28th, 2023. And whereas public libraries provide valuable services to their own and surrounding communities, schools, and Indigenous neighbours, and contribute to maintaining French language service and opportunities in Ontario Francophone communities. And whereas these services have expanded far beyond books and magazines and include services such as study and meeting areas, proctoring exams, internet access, e-resources, technology help, literacy programs, lending of snowshoes, radon detectors, Wi-Fi hotspots, Ontario park passes, municipal pool passes, walking poles, board games, puzzles, CO2 monitors, and other items of use. And whereas public libraries are increasingly called upon to provide non-traditional services such as being warming and cooling centers and partnering to provide community fridge and food bank amenities in the absence of these services being provided by government facilities with appropriate training and resources. Be it resolved, the Council for the City of Temiskaming Shores supports the Temiskaming Shores Public Library Board's call on the Ontario Minister of Tourism, Culture and Sport to work with the Ontario Ministries of Economic Development, Education, Finance, Francophone Affairs, Health, Indigenous Affairs, Job Creation and Trade, Public and Business Service Delivery, and Seniors and Accessibility, and the Federal Minister of Indigenous Affairs to recognize each ministry's benefits from library services and to implement a strong continuous funding program for library services. And further, that a copy of this resolution be forwarded to the Federation of Northern Ontario Municipalities, the Temiskaming Municipal Association, the Ontario Library Service, the Federation of Ontario Public Libraries, the Ontario Library Association, MPP John Vantoff, and the Honourable Patty Hadju, the Federal Minister of Indigenous Services. Can I get a mover, please? It's Councillor Wilson. Second by Councillor Foley. Discussion? Maybe before we do, I know Bridget and Rebecca are here. Just thought, I know you guys passed this at your board, and if you want to just share a little bit, with us, that'd be awesome.
Absolutely, and cognizant of the time, Gail will be mad. I'm halfway through band rehearsal, not there. So we did present our annual report in May, and at that time I made a flippant remark about the fact that provincial funding of libraries has not increased in 25 years, which effectively means it has decreased by 60%. And based on that, Danny asked us, Councillor Whalen asked us if we would put together a resolution. So we put this resolution together, passed it at our board meeting, and we've requested that we get support from you. Do we imagine this is going to do much of anything? No, but if you never ask for anything, you'll never get it. And it's Ontario Libraries Week this week, and the theme is Libraries for Life. And that's not just we should always have libraries, but we are providing life and supporting life through our public libraries, and it's high time the provincial government did something to support them as well. So thank you for all you do to support, and we look forward to your support on this resolution.
Thanks, Bridget. Any other? Councillor Whalen?
Yeah, just quickly, thanks, Bridget. I'm happy to see that we're calling on so many different ministries because libraries have certainly changed over the years, and the services that the board and the staff provide now cover a lot of different ministries within the province and the federal government. So I think that we should at least make them acknowledge that, and if they can kick in some funding, then more power to them.
Thanks, Councillor Whalen. Anybody else?
Mayor.
Councillor Wilson?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, thank you, Bridget, for that, and Rebecca, for both of you for coming. Yeah, I just to echo Councillor Whalen's comments, you are pulling up the slack for a lot of things services that are provided in the community, and I think that's it's so important. And I'm just wondering, yeah, perhaps maybe we can have some discussions about perhaps taking this a little further to a delegation level or something like that. I'm not sure how that might work out, but I'm just kind of thinking out loud here and whether we can create a little more interest on the topic, because, yeah, 25 years, no increase. We all know what that would be. So thank you for your presentation, and maybe we'll have some discussions around that. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Wilson. Any other comments? All in favor? That motion is carried. Item F, the Board of Health, the Temiskaming Health Unit, a resolution of support for the municipal expense allocation method. I do have a resolution in front of me, whereas the method of allocation for Board of Health expenses is governed by the Ontario Regulation 489-97 under the Health Protection and Promotion Act, and whereas the Board of Health of the Temiskaming Health Unit currently uses the most recent enumeration conducted by the Municipal Property and Assessment Corporation to allocate expenses, and whereas the Board of Health of the Temiskaming Health Unit feels that changing the method of allocation to utilize the most recent census conducted by the Statistics Canada allows for a more accurate and equitable distribution of expenditures. And whereas any change in allocation method must be agreed to by all obligated municipalities, be it resolved that Council for the City of Temiskaming Shores supports the Board of Health of the Temiskaming Health Unit's recommendation to move to a census-based allocation for Board of Health expenditures effective January 1, 2024, and that the census-based allocation method resulted in the total population of all the obligated municipalities in the health unit to increase by 3,867 people, which lowered the per capita rate from 60.04 cents to 52.03, and further that the City of Temiskaming Shores population would increase by 11% to 9,634, resulting in a 2023 levy of $501,275. Can I get a mover, please? It's Councillor Graydon. Seconded by Councillor Whalen. Discussion? I just wanted to add a little bit of input. This was a recommendation that I made at the Board of Health, and it really is around the accuracy of the information that was being used, and the board unanimously agreed that moving to the census-based would be the most effective, and it would give us the most accurate information. So, all those in favor? And that motion is carried. Item G, approval of the council meeting schedule from January 2024 to July 2024. And I do have a resolution in front of me, whereas bylaw 2023-022 as amended indicates that committee of the whole meetings shall be held on the first Tuesday of each month commencing at 3 p.m. unless otherwise decided by council. And whereas bylaw 2023-022 as amended indicates that regular council meetings shall be held on the third Tuesday of each month commencing at 6 p.m. unless otherwise decided by council. Now therefore be it resolved that council does hereby confirm the following schedule of meetings for the months of January 2024 to July 2024. So Tuesday, January the 16th, 2024, a committee of the whole meeting, followed immediately by regular council meeting. Tuesday, February the 6th, 2024, Committee of the Whole meeting. Tuesday, February the 20th, 2024, a regular meeting. Tuesday, March the 5th, 2024, Committee of the Whole meeting. Tuesday, March the 19th, 2024, a regular meeting. Tuesday, April the 2nd, 2024, a Committee of the Whole meeting. Tuesday, April the 16th, 2024, a regular meeting. Tuesday, May the 7th, 2024, Committee of the Whole meeting. Tuesday, May the 21st, 2024, a regular meeting. Tuesday, June the 4th, 2024, Committee of the Whole meeting. Tuesday, June the 18th, 2024, a regular meeting. Can I get a mover, please? Thanks, Councillor Wilson. Thanks, Councillor Foley. Discussion? All in favor? The motion's carried. My memo number 027-2023-CS, the Ontario Infrastructure and Lands Corporation application. I have a resolution in front of me. Be it resolved, the Council for the City of Temiskaming Shores acknowledges receipt of memo number 027-2023-CS. The Council directs the Treasurer to proceed with the application to the OILC for capital works as approved in bylaw number 2021-082. And that was the 2021 municipal budget, and in bylaw number 2022-088, which is the 2022 municipal budget. And the Council directs the Treasurer to proceed with other applicable bylaws as per the OILC program, being a funding agreement and debentures as required for approved capital works. Can I get a mover, please? Thanks, Councillor Green. Thanks, Councillor Peltier-Living. Discussion? What's that? Sorry?
So the capital listing is H, formerly capital?
Oh.
Just in case there's questions. Really.
Sorry, yeah. So, well, we'll deal with this one, and then I'll deal with the with item H. So all those in favor? That motion is carried. Item H is the quarterly capital budget variance report for Q3. And I do have a resolution in front of me. Be it resolved, the Council for the City of Temiskaming Shores acknowledges receipt of the quarterly capital budget variance report Q3 for information purposes. And can I get a mover, please? This is Councillor Foley. Councillor Wilson. Discussion? All in favor? The motion's carried. Item J, Administrative Report Number RS-023-2023, the Ontario Northland Transportation Commission, the ONTC Agency Agreement. I do have a resolution in front of me. Be it resolved, the Council for the City of Temiskaming Shores acknowledges receipt of Administrative Report RS-023-2023. That Council provides the Director of Recreation with the delegated authority to enter into an agreement with the Ontario Northland Transportation Commission to provide an ONTC agency at the Waterfront Pool and Fitness Centre. And further, the Council be provided with the complete terms of the agreement for adoption through a bylaw at a future meeting. Can I get a mover, please? Thanks, Councillor Graydon. Seconder. Thanks, Councillor Peltier-Living. Discussion? I think the agreement was pretty self-explanatory. Councillor Whalen?
Sorry. We say there's enough room within the pool fitness for people to come and go?
So the information provided to us both by the current agency and also the ONTC indicate that the number of people who actually stay in the facility to wait for a bus or to stay in the facility after the bus is dropped off is actually quite low to minimal, and that the space that we have right now is adequate for the volumes of passengers that they have and serve.
Good, thanks for that, Matt. I think it's a great idea. The only thing is I hope it doesn't take away from our discussions with ONTC that we'd sooner have a building than a shelter for the Northlanders. So we can cancel at any time with 30 days notice, but we need a strong argument to get more than a shelter as well.
Yeah, I will address that specific question, Councillor Whalen, because I did meet with the ONTC last week. They made it very clear that it will be a shelter in our community, and they have done a review of the existing train station, and they plan on taking it down, demolishing that building in early January of this upcoming year, and then fixing the parking lot and starting to do a little bit more work in that area. But they made it very clear right across the number of stops, from Toronto right through to Timmins, that there's very little amount of money being put into the building piece of things, with the exception of Timmins. And I think we can all understand why, that decision was made. However, they are putting glass shelters in the majority of the communities. Yeah. Okay, you're welcome. Oh, we do, sorry.
Sorry, I was a little, I know I'm in there all the time, but like my concern was sort of access to bathrooms that aren't change rooms. That we have to provide bathroom access, so that was my only concern. I can't remember now where the actual just bathrooms are.
So it's not a term of the agreement that bathrooms have to be made available. However, we do have public bathrooms specific that are different than the change rooms at the Pro Fitness Center.
Yeah. Thank you. My comment is, and I agree with Danny, we definitely want to make sure the ONTC services are coming to our community, which includes the busing piece. And, I just want to commend, Matt for, working with them and coming to some kind of solution. I know they couldn't come to an agreement with the Chamber of Commerce, and I think it is an important service that we want to make sure continues in our community. So, thank you for that. We do have a motion in front of us. All those in favor? And that motion is carried. This brings us to item 15, bylaws. I do have a resolution in front of me. Be it resolved that bylaw number 2023-106, being a bylaw to adopt the 2023-2024 winter operations plan for the City of Temiskaming Shores. Bylaw number 2023-107, being a bylaw to enter into a conditional contribution agreement with the Northern Ontario Heritage Fund Corporation for a replacement intern in the Energy and Climate Change Coordinator position. Bylaw number 2023-108, being a bylaw to enter into a 3-year agreement with Georgia Pacific LLC for an advertisement on the 2024 Olympia Ice Resurfacer at the Don Shepherdson Memorial Arena. Bylaw number 2023-109, being a bylaw to adopt an agreement between the City of Temiskaming Shores and the Municipality of Temiskaming for Chief Building Official and Building Inspector Services. Bylaw number 2023-110, being a bylaw for the assumption of a highway for public use within the City of Temiskaming Shores, Rivard Court. Bylaw number 2023-111, a bylaw to approve the submission of an application to the Ontario Infrastructure and Lands Corporation for the long-term financing of certain capital works of the Corporation of the City of Temiskaming Shores, and to authorize the entering into of a rate offer letter agreement pursuant to which the municipality will issue debentures to the OILC. Bylaw number 2023-113, being a bylaw to authorize entering into a funding agreement with the Federation of Canadian Municipalities under the Green Municipal Fund to establish a roadmap to net zero emissions for 8 municipal buildings in the City of Temiskaming Shores. Be hereby introduced and given first, second, and third and final reading, be signed by the Mayor and Clerk and the corporate seal affixed thereto. Can I get a mover, please? Thanks, Councillor Whalen. Seconded by Councillor Graydon. Discussion? All in favor? That motion is carried. Brings us to item 16, schedule of council meetings. We have a committee of the whole meeting scheduled for November the 7th, 2023, starting at 3 p.m. And we have a regular council meeting scheduled for November the 21st, 2023, starting at 6 p.m. Takes us to item 17. Any questions? Question and answer period? None? We don't have a closed session today. This brings us to item 19. You have a resolution, be it resolved that bylaw number 2023-112, being a bylaw to confirm certain proceedings of council of the Corporation of the City of Temiskaming Shores for its regular meeting held on October the 17th, 2023, be hereby introduced and given first, second, and third and final reading, and be signed by the mayor and the clerk, and the corporate seal affixed thereto. Can I get a mover, please? Thanks, Councillor Foley, seconded by Councillor Wilson. Discussion? All in favor? That motion is carried. Next item 20, adjournment. Be it resolved the council hereby adjourns this meeting at 8 o'clock. Thanks, Councillor Graydon. Thanks, Councillor Pelletier-Leving. All in favor? And we are adjourned. Thanks, everybody. Have a great evening.